Well, what do you say? The Brewers have won 2 in a row. Quality win over the Dodgers, and they win 9-3 on Monday night at AmFam Field. Freddie Peralta does a number on the Dodgers. The Brewers also get the long ball, and they score some runs. All that and more, and a look ahead to the second game of this series. And beer sales, back to the way they used to be. All that and more coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to Locked On Brewers. I'm your host, Chuck Freeman. Great to have you along here Monday night, early Tuesday morning, after a Brewer 9-3 win over the Dodgers. Freddie Peralta was spectacular. That's 5 quality starts for him this season. And the Brewers got a pair of 2-run homers. We'll get into all that coming up next. The Brewers decide also that beer seals, maybe we don't have to run it through the 8th inning. We'll talk about that as well. And look ahead at the box score and a few other things as well, as the Brewers win their second straight game after that 6-game skid. My name is Chuck Freeman. I work for Locked On Brewers, but I'm also the morning sports anchor for the radio station in Madison, 1310 WIBA. I cover the Brewers for AP Radio as well. Been covering the Brewers for over 40 years. But like you, the Milwaukee Brewers are my favorite professional sports teams. Yes, each and every year, I had my hopes up just like you guys. And the Brewers, up and down this year, I don't know what to think of these guys, but we're just going to ride it out. So they've won 2 in a row right now, and it's been fantastic with games like last night. Not like last week, but like Monday night's game. We'll take more of the same of that, and not having a high leverage game and a game where you're just peeking over the coffee table, hoping and praying that the Brewers cross the finish line with 2 or 3 runs. We'll get in that coming up here in a little bit. Follow us on Google. Follow us on, you can follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell there. That's going to alert you to every episode that we drop on YouTube. Appreciate you all watching the visual version of this. The audio version, like I said, Google. You can get it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I list them all on my Twitter account, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. You could drop me a line anytime if you need help finding it or whatever. We just enjoy having you aboard here, and I love hearing from you fans throughout. I read your tweets toward the end of the show, and I want to hear what you all have to say, because we're all in this together. We are a Brewer nation, and we are all in this there, so taking our hard-earned money and supporting and watching these guys, and taking our hard-earned 3 hours each night watching these guys. And I appreciate you making Locked On Brewers the number 1 podcast, the number 1 Brewer podcast on the internet. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Every day we are here after games, putting out podcasts, even on weekends as well. Some say maybe less is more, but I say more is more. Keep pouring it on. Let's be here every day and talk Brewer baseball and ride out this 2024 campaign, as my buddy Tim Allen would say, the championship season. But who knows if it is or not? We haven't had one yet. So we're just going to enjoy the season the way it is. And, last week I was a little angry with the team, and rightfully so, should all of us, because we expect a lot from our team, because they haven't been to the World Series since 1982. And, they get off to a great start this year. You hate to see them throwing it all back, but they bounced back against San Francisco, and they took care of business on Monday night against the Dodgers. The Brewers play again on Tuesday night, 6:40 with that first pitch. You catch every pitch of Brewers hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Brewers. Always appreciate the SiriusXM. Wherever you go in the country, you're going to be able to get Brewers baseball. And also thank you out there for making Locked On Brewers the number 1 podcast on the internet and following us. The everydayers out there will be back, of course, tomorrow after game 2 of this series with the Dodgers. Now, as I mentioned last night on the podcast, the Dodgers were flying in late. They played a late game in San Diego, the time difference, and they flew all the way in to take on the Brewers. And I know it's baseball. Okay, they get to the ballpark about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so they got a few hours of sleep. And Rock mentioned this on the broadcast tonight. And John Greenberg told me this about 35 years ago, who's now the president of the Milwaukee Admirals. And at the time, he was media relations director, or at least at that time, he was in the media relations department of the Milwaukee Brewers. He said that the time change and the road trips and getting back late doesn't affect you the next day, but it's the day after. So the Dodgers getting in late Sunday night, it wouldn't affect them on Monday, but Tuesday the drowsiness would take place and the time change and the flight and getting a lack of sleep and all that. But you know what? Hey, some of you guys out there, you're getting 5 hours of sleep a night anyway and doing way harder jobs. Am I right? So there's no excuses at all. But, the Brewers did beat a Dodgers team that didn't look like they put a heck of a lot of effort in. Early on, though, Tony Gonsolin looked pretty good, and it was Freddie Peralta who I thought threw a lot of pitches early in this game. But Freddie bounced back. He went 6 innings, gave him 3 hits, and turned in his 5th quality start. So good he was. So good he was. And so was Joey Wiemer. It was just yesterday I was mentioning, man, Joey Wiemer's average, he goes 0 for 3, 0 for 4 every game, and his average never changes. It's like 207 every game. He goes 0 for 3, 0 for 4. Is there no math on Joey Wiemer's batting average? But Joey unloaded a 3-run home run to break up a scoreless tie in the 5th inning off Gonsolin. And Gonsolin's a pretty good pitcher. All-star last year, coming back off an injury, trying to work his way back. But Wiemer tagged him. 4 RBIs for Wiemer on the night. Willy Adames later added a 3-run home run, career home run number 101. He hit his 100th on Sunday in San Francisco, but a 3-run homer made it 9-1, and game, set, and match right there. And there was no coming back, even for a powerful offense like the LA Dodgers. And Freddie got the win, 5 strikeouts as well. But the Brewers just pounded away and got the big long ball. And yeah, I don't like sitting back and waiting for the 3-run home run. Counsel in his post-game press conference on Sunday was talking about the 2-run home runs the Brewers had hit by William Contreras and Adames, and said, well, that beats having to get 5 base hits to score those 2 runs. I just don't like that mentality. And that's the mentality that's going around baseball. And I thought toward the beginning of the season, the Brewers were like going the opposite of the mentality. And that way of thinking was changing. But apparently, after listening to Craig on Sunday after the game, doesn't sound like it has changed. But they hit 2 3-run home runs, and that got them out to this win today. The home run bat won them this game. I still think I'm old school, and I still think there's plenty of room for getting a guy on, getting him over, and getting him in, bunting, stealing bases, doing the right things on the base paths, smart baseball. I just still think that's a great way to go. But, I guess the 3-run homer is the way that these guys want to do it. And that's the way the Brewers did it on Monday night with Wiemer and Adames hitting home runs, and the Brewers winning this game 9-3. Dodgers had one threat early on, 2nd inning. They put runners at 1st and 2nd, and then a weak little ground ball to Rowdy Tellez, and got the out at first base and finished off the inning. Bennett Sousa also pitched for the Brewers, gave a 2-run home run there in the 9th inning. But we're going to talk about in the next segment about, do the Brewers need to go out and get themselves an 8th inning guy? I mean, Strez is their 8th inning guy right now, Peter Strzelecki. But we're trying to win a pennant here. All right. We like Strez, but can we do better than Strez? We'll talk about that coming up here. We'll talk about that coming up here after the quick break. I want to tell you a little bit about one of our sponsors here. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. FanDuel. FanDuel is the way to go. Sports betting. The Brewers were about a 120 favorite today. And I know there's a guy who follows me on Twitter who tells me he bets every day on the Milwaukee Brewers. He threw a lot back last week by them losing 6 in a row. So hopefully he's bounced back by the last 2 games and won 2. Yeah, the Brewers were about a 120 favorite against the Dodgers. FanDuel, the NBA playoffs are hot and heavy as well, and make a fast break to FanDuel to start betting on the NBA playoffs, because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. It's safe, secure, FanDuel, national brand. You get paid instantly. Great promotions every day. There's no better place to place all your bets with the playoff action, or for any sport for that matter, with America's #1 sports book, FanDuel. Now visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's right. FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. And you will get that no sweat first bet up to $1,000. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Some of you have been asking why my glasses are so crooked. Been bounced around, thrown around in the car, whipped off. When things go bad with our sports teams, I put these babies through hell. So I need some more. I need another pair, but they'll do for now. But you're gonna have to get them like this sometimes, and like this, and like this, and like this, and all over the map. But FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along. And for you everydayers out there, those of you who follow us every day on the Locked On Podcast Network, you listen to me and all the other great Locked On podcasts, and appreciate that as always. And I get up in the morning. I'm up about 4 o'clock in the morning to do my morning sports on WIBA in Madison. And I see people already listening at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, wherever you're headed, whether you're in the great state of Wisconsin or on the East Coast or staying up late on the West Coast or all over the world. We have countries all over the world that download our podcast each and every day. And I appreciate that. And of course, watch us on the video as well. I am trying to find something here, and I don't have my glasses on because I need to put, if you're watching me on video, I need to put that up right there. I'm still going through the technical part of making sure all the bells and whistles are in place here on Locked On. I've been like my 1-month anniversary, and I love being on Locked On Brewers, talking Brewers baseball with you guys, but I'm still working through some of the bells and whistles. All right, tomorrow, the Brewers and Dodgers 6:40 on Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Brewers. As I was mentioning about Strzelecki, I'm going to get to that coming up in here in a little bit. Whether or not the Brewers should maybe find themselves an 8th inning guy, I think that would be in their best interest. We'll get about that in just a little bit here. All right, lineup tonight. Christian Yelich led off at 1 for 3, 2-run single. I didn't mention that. Pair of 2-run home runs for the Brewers, but then Christian Yelich also had a base hit. Sharp base hit, was knocked down by the shortstop, but it would have got through the hole, but it did score 2 runs. And that was key because that made it 6-1. Jesse Winker was the DH tonight. He went 0 for 3. Willy Adames 1 for 4 with a 3-run blast. Rowdy took it 0 for 4. William Contreras took it 0 for 4. Yeah, Rowdy, they sat him, last Friday night? And Rowdy hasn't been the same since. I was not happy when they sat Rowdy. Team going through a slump, and they sat Rowdy. They pinch hit him in the 9th inning, and he struck out to end the game. But Rowdy should not be. When Rowdy's hot and he's lacing base hits and gappers and all that, Rowdy should be in the everyday lineup until his arms fall off. But Rowdy, since sitting last Friday, looks like he's a little bit of a funk, but he had been so good coming up with clutch base hits. William Contreras went 0 for 4. Brian Anderson went 1 for 4. Bryce Terang 1 for 4. Tyrone Taylor had a couple of hits. So he went 2 for 4. Joey Wiemer, again, 2 for 3. Home run, RBI single. And Wiemer moved that batting average from 207 to 221 with 2 hits for 2 for 3 on his Monday night. On the pitching end, Freddie Peralta, 6 innings, 3 hits. We talked about him. 5 Ks on 94 pitches. Freddie with his 5th quality start of the year. Elvis Peguero came on with that healthy lead. Inning and a third, gave up 1 hit. Elvis has been pretty good. And Brandon Sousa made his Brewer debut. Bennett Sousa, I should say. Bennett made his debut, 1 2/3, 2 hits, gave up that 2-run home run, struck out 2. Left-hander. Guy who's worked on a few things on the minor league level. And they brought him up lefty, and sent down Jake Cousins. Now, Cousins has been okay, 28 years old, and somebody tweeted at me today, why do they keep sending down Jake Cousins? How come he doesn't have a permanent spot on this team? I don't think they trust Jake in a high-level, high-leverage spot. I don't. My gut feeling is they look at a Jake Cousins as a guy who they throw in there maybe for down 4-1 or 3-1. But they will not put him in a clutch, tight spot, which leads me to my next question. Do the Brewers need to go out and get themselves another eighth inning guy? Now, Peter Strzelecki, other than that blow up last Thursday in Colorado, Peter has been just fantastic. And I'm good with him in the eighth inning spot. But do you remember 2011 when the Brewers went out and got K-Rod? And they already had Axford closing games, and they got K-Rod, and they moved K-Rod from a closer's role with the Mets to the setup role, the eighth inning guy. Now, K-Rod eventually would be the closer in the following years, and he'd come back to the team like 5 or 6 times, I felt. But I'd like to see them go out and get themselves a veteran eighth inning guy. I think they're settling on, I just took a drink. I think they're settling on Strzelecki right now. But if a better person walked through that door and a trade opportunity came about, I think the Brewers would go for it. And as they move toward the trading deadline, and we're 2 months away from it, I think the Brewers, one of their priorities would be getting a strong eighth inning guy. I mean, there's other parts of this team that would need fixing up too. And who knows how injuries are going to play a part of that as we move toward here in the next 2 months. But I mean, it doesn't mean you gotta wait to the trading deadline to get an eighth inning guy. You can get an eighth inning guy tomorrow if you could. But as teams go deeper into the season and they realize that they're not going to be a part of the championship run, maybe they're willing to dump one of their guys, one of their relievers. But we'll keep an eye on for that as we go along, candidates and possibilities. But just was thinking about that over the weekend, that maybe the Brewers, it would be in their best interest to get an eighth inning guy somewhere down the road and move Strzelecki to the seventh inning. I mean, if you had to use Strzelecki, that's fine. But like I've always say, we're trying to win a pennant here. Brewers announced this morning, sent a press release out that they're going back to beer sales ending at AmFam Field after the seventh inning. I don't think this is that big of a deal, but it sure got a lot of coverage. You would think the Brewers were shutting off beer sales the way people were reacting. Now, the Brewers decided to, before the season, or was it the first week of the season, that they decided to move their beer sales, cut off beer sales at the end of the eighth inning instead of the seventh inning, because games have been flying by and they feel like maybe they were losing some sales. Well, after this last homestand, after a little trial and error, they realized, you know what, it doesn't really matter because people aren't drinking in the eighth inning anyway. So what are we doing here? Is it worth it keeping open into the eighth inning? And they made a decision to cut it back to the seventh inning. And let's face it, the games are flying by so quickly anyway. If you get a beer in the seventh inning and the eighth inning, what's the difference? 5 minutes? The way these games are flying by, it doesn't matter if it's the seventh inning or the eighth inning. It was the fifth inning or the eighth inning. That's the difference. But, you know, this new way of speeding up and hurrying through a baseball game and the pitch clocks and the amount of times the pitcher can disengage from the mound, that's changed the pace of the game. So, yeah, the game has sped up a little bit. But with that, though, there's not much difference between seventh and eighth innings because these games are flying by a 5, 7, 8 minute clip. So what's the difference? And the Brewers realized that. So what are we doing? Staying open until after the eighth inning. Let's do what we did. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Some of you guys, we need our beer. No, you're fine. Blue Mountain Avenue's got plenty of establishments. Drive up there, and one less beer is you're going to be okay. Slam it at one less beer. Head on up in the shuttle to the eighth inning, or have someone else drive you, and you're going to be fine. But yeah, I saw people complaining about the Brewers dropping their beer, going back to seventh inning. Y'all weren't using it anyway, that extra 5 minutes anyway. So yeah, I'm with the Brewers on this one. The St. Louis Cardinals also won. The Cardinals bounced back, and they've won 2 in a row. Brewers remain 8.5 and back in front of the Cardinals, as the Cardinals, who won on Sunday against the Tigers, took the opener of their 3-game set with the Cubs, and won the game, got on the board first, and were able to ride that to a 3-1 win. So all is happy so far in Cardinal Nation, but they're still 8.5 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers. Gus Varland is back on the Brewers, ready to be activated. Remember, he got hurt in San Diego on a comebacker, but he's doing fine. He had his rehab starts. He pitched like 5 innings of rehab down at AAA, and he's ready to go, just ready to be activated. That could be any day now, but Gus Varland back in a Brewer jersey. When we come back, we'll get to your tweets and look ahead to the game coming up on Tuesday as the Brewers go for their 3rd straight victory. All that coming up on Locked On Brewers. Thanks for making Locked On Brewers part of your day, your first listen to every day. All you everydayers out there on the Locked On Podcast Network, listen to us early mornings on your commute, picking your kids up from school, driving to work every day. I appreciate it. All the tweets and all that. We drop these overnight, and on Friday and Saturday nights we try to drop them a little earlier. But we're here every day talking Brewer baseball with you on Locked On Brewers on the Locked On Podcast Network. You find us on all those podcast apps, Google. You can get us on the Apple, Spotify, and of course, those of you watching us on video, Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Please, please, please subscribe. And the Brewers, as I mentioned, they will play another game on Tuesday night, 6:40 Central, with the first pitch against the Dodgers. Catch every pitch of Brewers' hometown broadcast, Sirius XM, on the SXM app. Search Brewers. All right, let's get to your tweets. See what you all had to say. The tweets aren't as noisy when the Brewers win a game. Jacob says, it's a great win, but as I was watching, I couldn't help but think if Mitchell wouldn't have gotten hurt, this team could have made some noise. Tyrone Taylor is most decidedly not it. I wouldn't say that. Yeah, that Garrett Mitchell is a big loss, but we don't know how his full season was going to go. Spark plug at that top of the order. Guy could run, one of the fastest guys in baseball. I looked at him as a guy who's going to move to the top of the order. But you don't know. He's going to go through his slump as well. But he was giving him great defense. Wiemer has done a seamless job filling in for him defensively in center field. That was a little surprise. When Wiemer played center field early in the season at Wrigley, it was a cold, windy day. I was like, man, they're putting him in a tough spot. And Wiemer was just fine. And he's made some acrobatic catches out there and has just been fantastic. You don't look at him as being a prototypical body-wise center fielder. I guess, you see Trout play center field and some of these other guys. I'm not comparing him to Trout, but, guys who've got a big upper body. But he's an athlete, and athletes can play center field. But jury's still out on Tyrone Taylor, as it is Garrett Mitchell. But definitely though, the team could definitely use Garrett Mitchell. Bill writes, an offense this streaky is going to require some meditation techniques to keep an even keel. Now I have to cheer for the Cubs, which also makes me feel filthy. Yeah, cheering for the Cubs against the Dodgers or the Cardinals, I think is what you're talking about there. Yeah, this Brewer offense, now they scored 9 runs tonight and 2 homers, but that's the way they're going to be. There's going to be times where we're going to be mad, like I was last week, and shouting because their offense is just so bad. Brewers had a long played ride from San Francisco. Brewers didn't land in Milwaukee until 11:37 last night, according to Sports Travel. There's a website that actually tracks this. Diehard Brewer fan says the same thing. Brewers didn't land in Milwaukee until 11:40 last night. Yeah, I get it, but I think it was the Dodgers probably left San Diego around 11:40 Milwaukee time after playing on Sunday Night Baseball. Butch replies, no jinx tonight. I put up a tweet when the Brewers were up 9-1 that they were going to go on and win the game. There was no way they were going to lose that game, but I hear what you're saying. Matt says Adames shoved an Oppo taco towards the Dodgers direction, I'll say. And that was some of the tweets we had for tonight. Again, all is good in Brewers Nation after a 9-3 win. Noah Syndergaard, a guy who was on pace to be one of the baseball's great pitchers, had a triple-digit fastball. Then he wrecked his elbow, and it's been a long road to recovery from the Mets. Now he's with the Dodgers. Last time out, he beat St. Louis 5 1/3, 8 hits, 3 runs. Noah Syndergaard, who's trying to get himself back. Will he ever see triple digits again? I don't know about that. That's tough to do, but he'll be the tough mound opponent for the Brewers, and a guy who, again, on any given day, even coming off that injury, could be great. Eric Lauer, who's 3-3 on the hill for the Brewers, 4 2/3, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts. The 4 runs were unearned in the loss to Colorado last week. So he'll take the mound for the Brewers. And that's going to do it. That's going to do it for Locked On Brewers for today. Brewers win it 9-3. Tomorrow night, we'll be right back here right after the game, about 2 hours after the game, dropping a podcast. And hopefully the Brewers extending their winning streak to 3 in a row. I'm Chuck Freeman. This is Locked On Brewers on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Follow us on your favorite podcast sites, YouTube as well. And of course, follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Good night, everybody.